Welcome back to the channel, everyone. In this video, I'm gonna show you and walk with you as we create an NFT on Binance Smart Chain. And this tutorial works fine on any EVM chain. If you want to do it on Ethereum, it's the same process. If you want to do it on Polygon, Matic, Testnet, Mainnet, that's the same process. So any EVM chain, you can do this tutorial, but I'm gonna do it specifically on Binance Smart Chain Testnet. All right. And we're going to do it using Moralis. We're also going to use Remix to build a smart contract. And those are the tools we need. We just need Moralis and we need Remix smart contract. We're going to also use the Open Zeppelin Solidity templates in order to make our lives a little bit easier. And I'm going to show you that here. So this is the template we're going to use. It's going to be an ERC 1155 token. And that means that it's a very flexible contract. We can create actually both non-fungible tokens, NFTs, and fungible tokens if you want. You can mint how many tokens you want. Depends on how you set the smart contract up. But using this process of using Open Zeppelin contracts allows us to get an NFT deployed very fast. You don't have to do the hard work of putting all the smart contract code together. Open Zeppelin has done that for us. And this is a free and well-tested template of the ERC 1155 token standard. And we're going to use this in Remix. So the actual coding of the smart contract is going to be done in Remix, remix.ethereum.org. This works perfectly for Binance Smart Chain as well. Don't worry about the name. And what we are going to do here is first just write pragma solidity 0.8.0. This just tells them what version of Solidity compiler we're going to use. Then we're going to import the Open Zeppelin contract. And what you can do is you can copy the URL for this page, and I can leave this in the description, or you can just search for Open Zeppelin ERC 1155 and you will find this GitHub page. But you need this GitHub URL, and then you can paste that here in the import statement as a string. Like that. Let's see. I'm gonna make this smaller so that you can see everything. The long string. I'm sorry about that. There you go. .sol. This will automatically pull in all the files that you need, all the dependencies that you need, and then we can define our contract. So I'm gonna call this just NFT. Contract NFT, and we're gonna inherit from ERC 1155 because that's the contract we just imported. And then here we can define the NFTs that we want to mint when this contract is created. And we do that by specifying the IDs that we want to mint. And we're gonna alias this sort of to a name so that it's more easily understandable by creating constant integers with a name. So I'm gonna call this first one a sword. So let's say we're building a game. We want an NFT in the game. But this could also be any sort of art piece that you're doing, or any sort of financial instrument, whatever you're doing, you can name it here. So this sword is going to have ID 0, because all an NFT is really is a token with a special ID, where that ID is only associated with this one sword, or how many swords you might have, but it's one ID means one specific type of token. And then you associate some data with this ID so that the owner of that NFT also sort of owns the data that comes with that NFT. But that doesn't have to be the case, but usually it is. And now in the constructor, we're going to mint an NFT with this ID. So we're going to mint some swords. So constructor, and here we also have to run the constructor of the contract that we inherited from. So ERC 1155, and this takes a token URI, which we're going to talk more about later. But here we can call the mint function. It's called _mint. And the first argument of _mint is who is going to get the minted NFT. And here we're going to go with message.sender, which will be the person or the address that deploys this contract will get the NFT. And then we're going to specify the ID of the NFT that we want to mint. We want to mint sword. We could also just put 0, but it's easier once you have a lot of NFTs to use these labels. But sword just means 0. And then we can specify how many we're going to mint. And here you can mint 1 if you want to be a really exclusive item, or you can mint 1,000, or you can mint, you know, 10 to the power of 18, whatever, how many you want. I'm gonna mint 100. And the final argument is some internal notes that we can leave, but we're not gonna do that. Yeah, we're still missing the argument here. But this is how you mint an NFT in the act of contract creation, right? So when the contract is created, it's going to run the constructor. We're going to mint 100 of these swords. If you want to mint more items, you just do this over again. Maybe you want to mint some armor. You put this as ID1, and you do mint here for armor. Maybe you mint 200 of armor, whatever it is. But I'm not going to do that here because it will just make the process more complicated later on. So we're going to do it simple, so I can show you the process. And now all that's left here before we can complete this is the token URI. And what is the token URI? Well, that is something, that's a link that is embedded into the NFT. So that when you have an NFT, I've taken an example here, we have this NFT here on OpenSea. I have no affiliation to this whatsoever. It was just some random one I found, Stoner Cats. And I looked this up on Etherscan. This is that NFT contract. And I can look at token URI for a specific token. This will give me a link to a JSON file. If I open that JSON file, it will look like this. So I get a JSON file back with all of the data that is associated with this NFT. For example, you have the name, you have the description, you have the image. For example, we can open up the image. That gives us the image. Well, it's not even the same image. What the hell? Oh, yeah. I didn't look up the right token ID. So this is some other token ID. I don't know what the token ID is of this one. But this was token ID 0. I looked up here. And I could change this here by changing the 0 here to 10, for example. That means token ID 10. And I check the image of that. Looks like this. But the point is that we need a file hosted somewhere that we can get a link to and include in our NFT that will have the description and the image and so on. You don't have to do that, but almost every NFT nowadays have these sort of files. And you could just have an NFT with an ID, but this is the industry standard to do it with a JSON description. So that's what we're gonna do. And that means that we need somewhere to store information about our NFTs. And here is where Moralis comes into perfect play. So in Moralis, you can have databases, right? And we're going to have an NFT database with all of the information about our NFT. And then we're going to create a cloud function so that we can get this data for specific NFTs. And we're going to include that URL inside of our NFT contract. So what you need to do is you need a free Moralis account. Go to moralis.io, sign up, and then you need to create a server. And the actual network doesn't matter specifically for what we're doing now, but you should choose the same network as you want to use later on. Maybe that's Binance Smart Chain Testnet. You should select that. But then you want to go into this dashboard, which you will come here. Here you want to create a new class. Let me turn off this dark mode. And then you call it NFT. I called my NFT, and then I click create class. It will give you this NFT class that I have right here. Then what you need to do is you need to add a few columns, whatever information you want about your NFTs. So I added image, I added NFT ID, and damage. So my sword will have damage. If you click on, let's see here, no, here, add a new column, you can add like description. Default value, I'm not gonna have a default value. Required field, no. Add column, and then this will be empty. But I had image, NFT ID, and damage, and you can pay attention to what I named them exactly, because those will be the names that you then need to use in your cloud function. You can have this file type, which is interesting. It's very powerful. So when you can add the column here, and the type, I had, for example, damage was number, NFT ID is number, that's important. But I can also have file. So that's what I used for the image. So create these columns, and then you can fill them in for our sword. So I added a row that had NFT ID 0, which was the sword. I said it has damage 10. I uploaded a sword PNG that I found on flaticon.com. So that's where I got it from, because it says here I have to give them attribution when I use this. So I got it from flaticon.com. I downloaded that, and then you can upload it here. Oops. Replace file or upload, it will say the first time. And then I'm gonna add a description here. The best and most powerful sword in the entire world. There we go. It has updated this NFT right here, or added the NFT description or file, whatever you want to call it. And then when you have a row here for 0, then we're good to go for now, because we just have one NFT. If you had multiple NFTs, you would add one row for each NFT ID. All right. Now we need a way to get a link like this, because we need to have a link in our token contract. So we need to get a link that somehow gets this information out in a simple JSON format like this. What we can do is that we can create a cloud function for this. So then you go out into the Moralis admin panel again. You click on your server on cloud functions. And then I've created this very simple cloud function. I've called it get NFT. And it is an async function that, first of all, selects the class NFT. So we want to query the NFT table. Then I'm saying that I want to find a row that is equal to, where the NFT ID is equal to 0. And here, I should actually put request.params. Let's see, ID. And then I think I need to convert this into a number, but I think this will be a string. That means we have to use int. We will be sending the ID as a parameter into this function, and we're going to use that to find the row NFT ID, which is the column name, is equal to whatever ID we send in. And then we're going to run this query. So I'm going to run query.first. It means we'll just find the first row where this is true, and it will get the result. It will log the results to the Moralis log, and then it will return the results. And this means that we will get the results in a JSON format out in the browser with a link just like this. So I'll save this file. And now we're going to try to call this in our browser. And the way that we do this is as a REST call, is to first get our server URL. I'm going to copy that. And then, so let's paste that in here for now. And then we need to add a few parameters after this, and this is outlined in our docs in the cloud functions, cloud code, cloud functions, and then calling via REST API. That's what we want to do. So you need your server URL, and then we're gonna write, make this bigger. We're gonna write /functions and then / our function name. So /functions /get NFT. You can see I already have my old one here. Then we need to add !_ application ID. And that's going to be equal to our Moralis app ID. That we also can find here, application ID. And finally, we need to add an sign, what's called ampersand, ID equals 0. So ID is what we pass in for our cloud function here, ID. And we add an argument like that as a query parameter. Then we should be able to click enter here, and we can get it back. So here we can see that we have a file, which is the sword PNG. We have the URL for that here. I can view that here. Boom. I also have the description. And I have the damage and so on. So all the parameters that I put in my database are available here. You could also filter out all of this stuff like the created at, updated at. You could also get rid of this result if you want. But this is okay for now. So with that done, we have the link that we need. Okay, now we can go back to Remix and use this as the, this is long, as the token URI. Now there's one more thing you need to keep in mind, because this URI will be different for each token ID, right? The last number here will be 0 or 1 or 2 or 3 for each token ID. And in ERC1155 tokens, we use a placeholder for this called ID. So we have this curly parentheses and then ID, where we input the token ID. We can take this and we put that as the constructor argument for ERC1155 contract, okay? So the standard for ERC1155 is that each token URI is the same, and then it's up to the one who's calling this NFT to look it up, to insert the ID in the right place. We just need to tell them what the URI structure is, like this, and then they get to input the ID here. With that, we are done with this NFT contract, and you can try it out here in the JavaScript VM, for example. You can deploy it here, you can play around with it here. You can see that, for example, if I check the balance of token ID 0 for my address, you can see that I have a 100, maybe it's very small, but I have a 100 token balance, which means I have 100 swords. Now all that's left is to deploy this to the Binance Smart Chain. And luckily, that is very easy also with Moralis, because if you want to deploy to the Binance Smart Chain testnet, we need a Binance Smart Chain node. And you need to add that into your MetaMask. So you go into Moralis admin once again, you go into Speedy Nodes, you go into BSC network, and then here you want to select the testnet, and you want to click add to MetaMask. Then let's see if I actually have this. Yeah, I think I have this. Then when we go into MetaMask, we want to select here the Binance Smart Chain testnet. And then I'm just going to find the account where I have some testnet BNB. So here I have some testnet BNB. And if you don't have testnet BNB, just Google for BNB testnet faucet, and you will find one. You can get some BNB into your MetaMask account for Binance Smart Chain testnet. Then finally, when we have that, we can go into Remix. Let's remove this old contract, select environment, injected Web3. And now we'll see it's a custom network. It's ID 97, which is in fact the Binance Smart Chain testnet. Now we're going to deploy this contract to the Binance Smart Chain testnet. Deploy. We're going to need to confirm with our wallet. Hit confirm. This creation of NFT is pending. See? Yeah, you can see that. A little bit small. And there it is created. Now let's check out this transaction hash, or rather maybe our let's check out the transaction hash in Binance Smart Chain BSC scan testnet. There, testnet.bscscan.com. We're going to search for our transaction hash, and here we can see our transaction. We're going to check the contract. Here is our NFT contract. Now, since we haven't uploaded the contract here, we can't really do anything with it here, but we can interact with it through Remix. So here we have our deployed contract now on Binance Smart Chain testnet, and the same thing will be true here. I can get the balance of my address and the token ID. I can check the stored token ID. I can also get here, for example, the URI. The problem is, which I don't know why they're doing in this contract, but you input the token ID, but you still just get the URL back with the placeholder, and that's how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to, on the front end or on the back end, whatever, replace ID with the ID you're calling, but I don't know why they would have a parameter for this function. But anyway, we have this here. We can query this like before, but we have to change this to ID 0, and then we get the same thing. This is the basic process of creating an NFT. It's not a bit more difficult than this. What can be done then to expand on this idea to actually create a real life production version NFT? Well, first of all, you probably want more NFTs than this. You might also want to override the mint function, or rather create a public mint function. So you might want to create function mint that is public, and which in turns calls the mint function in some way. So you want to include arguments here and pass those arguments into here, and then you want to make this only available for the owner. Now we haven't defined this yet, but you should probably have that in a real world smart contract, so that only the owner of the contract can execute this function, and then mint more NFTs as you go along, because you might not want to redeploy an entire contract when you want to mint new NFTs. You might want to be able to do that whenever you want. But if you are a bit unsecure in Solidity, you don't really know what this means, only owner, you don't really know how to create these functions, then you should maybe take a course on Solidity. We have very good courses that I teach over at the Ivan on Tech Academy. There are many tutorials on our YouTube channel that you can check out how to build with Solidity. But this is something that you could add. You also probably want to mint these into some sort of marketplace if you want to sell them. Or you just want to mint them to yourself, and then you post them on some marketplace like OpenSea or Rarible, whatever it might be. So this might be enough to deploy your NFTs. You might also want to clean up this a little bit, remove the unnecessary things that you're returning that you don't need. You might maybe you only want to include the image, the description, name, and damage. But you can customize that here in the database, what you want to, what sort of properties you want for your NFT, and then in the cloud code, you can customize what you are returning. You can check out the Moralis documentations for what you can do here in the, but this is just standard JavaScript. You can just manipulate this result object and customize what you are returning. If you have any questions about this, then feel free to check out, let's see, I want to go to Remix, here we go. If you have any questions about this, feel free to leave a comment down below, or maybe let us know what type of videos you want to see in the future. What more should we do with NFTs? But yeah, I want to thank you for watching, and as I said, any questions, comments, leave them down below. Check out moralis.io, subscribe to the channel for more amazing Web3 content like this, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.